Welcome to another episode of season 6 of the Runners Roundtable. Season 6 is our Beyond Pace season, and each episode is dedicated to the guest's favorite running memory. And the guest for this episode is my very own run coach, Jessica Reyes. We've been working together for a while, and it's been collaboration since the beginning. So I'm so excited to have you here because you are such an important person to me personally and also to me as a runner. And just anytime I get a chance to talk to you, I always get excited because I always leave feeling better as a human being. So, Jessica, thank you so much for joining me in this episode. We're going to start the episode off with one of the big questions, and that's just, can you introduce us to who you are, how long you've been running, and what your relationship is with running right now?
Yes. So thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Stephanie. I do love our conversations too, so I'm so happy to be here. My name is Jessica Reyes. I am the head coach and owner of Team Sugar Runs, where Stephanie is also a coach. And we are an entirely female coaching team, and we primarily focus on helping female athletes in a variety of ways. And my relationship with running, I've been running for almost 20 years now. Before that, I was a soccer player, so running has been a part of my life for such a long time, and it's definitely changed during that time. In my late 20s, I was very much into running marathons and getting as fast as I possibly could. And then in my mid 30s, I had a baby, and I haven't run a marathon since. And I've actually been injured quite a lot and have just really learned how to be grateful for running and having it in my life in any way possible, because prior to that, a lot of my focus was on data and times and metrics and things that were very measurable. And now it is more of a focus on how running makes me feel and how it brings joy into my life, no matter what that looks like, because it is very different than it was 6, 7 years ago for me. So that's it.
I'm always curious, or I've been curious, and I don't think I've ever actually asked you, was the decision to share about your journey through these injuries, was that one that was like intentional? Was it hard? Because you've been so open with it. And it's not like you've had one injury and then you came back and everything was great. It was like you had one injury, you had a streak of months where you were running, and then another injury, and then another. Like, it's definitely been very back and forth with the injuries. So when it comes to sharing about it on social media and even just with those of us who just get to know you, was that an easy choice to make?
I think for a very long time, I mean, I had built my entire coaching business on Instagram, and that was definitely during the years that I was progressively improving and getting faster and not taking any time off of running for any reason. And so when I got pregnant and had to slow down, that was the first time I was like, oh, running looks very different. How do I share about this with people who have maybe connected with me because I was running in a certain way and now my running looks different? And then after having my son and then getting back into running to end up injured less than 2 years later, with a pretty big injury that really like changed the trajectory of my running. It was kind of like, what do I tell people? And especially I think as a running coach, sometimes it's hard to, you know, one of the things that I like to tell people is, if you have a running coach, it can help prevent injury. And I have come to realize that not all injuries are preventable. And injuries are a big communication tool from your body that is telling you that something needs to be fixed or changed, or
Mm.
you need to make changes in a certain way so that you can keep running. And so that kind of became, because I kept kind of getting injured, um, that became very clear to me that there were things in my body that had changed during pregnancy that I didn't know anymore how to kind of trust that. And I realized every time I started over, I actually felt like a beginner, right? Because I had never truly been a beginner with running. When I went from playing soccer competitively for almost 20 years to then just transitioning into distance running. And so I had always been running and don't remember what it was like to be a beginner. And that was very, very informative for me to just know how challenging it is to start in this sport when you have like no experience, but also when you have lost that fitness, but you still have those mental experiences of what running used to feel like. So there's kind of two different things going on there. And that felt really important to share with people because being injured makes you feel very disconnected from other runners, from the running community. You kind of feel like you lose a part of your identity. And it's really, I think, important for people who are injured or struggling with recurring injuries to know like there's still a lot of things that you can do and that it's not the end of running for you, that there's always a way to keep going and keep running in your life.
That I think is really, you said something that I think is really interesting. And it kind of makes sense when you take into consideration what they say that most people get injured at some point or another. Like most runners get injured at some point in their running career. But when you hear that, you think, oh, it's an injury because of something I did, right? Like, oh, overuse or because of this or because of that. And yet, what you're talking about is that there are some injuries that you can't prevent, right? Like, and in your case, it's pregnancy or anatomical changes, which makes me think of just as a woman moving through life and experiencing a body that changes, right? Like experiencing just a changing body. I don't even know how else to say it other than just like there's so much that changes in the body that we cannot control. And how does that affect or impact our potential for getting injured? And I think that's really important because as a run coach, that's kind of eye opening, right? Or it's kind of like dumping cold water on our heads of no matter what we do, or not no matter, but in spite of what our best intentions are, some people just might get injured, right? Like that's not it. And I guess the question I have is how has your history with injury, how has that changed how you approach your coaching?
Um, I definitely think one of the biggest things is not feeling like I did anything wrong as a coach, because I think a lot of times we would think, oh, we had such a conservative build, right? We didn't add too much too soon. And you automatically think that I'm a bad coach because this person got hurt, right? Um, and I think it's been made pretty evident in my own running when I was training myself, but also with several of the athletes that I've worked with that no matter how conservative you are, no matter how much strength training you're doing, no matter how much fueling you're doing, right? Because that's another piece of it. No matter how much recovery you're getting, sometimes it's still inevitable that you're going to get injured. And you won't know what the problem is until you get that injury.
Mm-hmm.
And I have so many examples for you for myself personally of when that happened. I would not have known that I developed plica syndrome, right, in my knee, which caused essentially runner's knee. And I wouldn't have known that I had some instabilities in my body until that came up, right? Um, I, my foot, my right foot is prone to external rotation because probably I've had a stress fracture there, which wearing a boot makes you externally rotate. So that's changed my anatomy on that side. And that led to my foot kind of being too tense and another injury in my foot because of that. And I didn't realize that my foot was so tense and not absorbing force until it started hurting and I was injured. Um, so you sometimes can't even recognize the things that your body is doing differently or what it's, for me, it's differently, right? Because there's a clear postpartum is when I started getting injured. Prior to that, I was never injured. So it's sometimes hard to recognize what your body's doing differently when you already feel like you don't know it because you've had some kind of like life-changing thing happen to you, where your body is completely different now. So that whole trust factor with your body changes. Um, and so I think a lot of times athletes also get really down on themselves, like they did something wrong. And sometimes it's like, well, this is kind of great because now we know, like, okay, here's a problem. Let's kind of look up and down your chain with the help of professionals to figure out how do we prevent this from happening in the future and what do we need to work on so that you can become a stronger runner and not risk this again in the future. Um, and that has changed my coaching to more of a focus on, I think, the programming and progression and more on like the mindset and helping people work through those, um, the mental side of running, which is so big when you're injured or when you're maybe even when you're kind of at a plateau, right? And you're like, why am I doing this? Or when you're aging and you're slowing down and you're trying to figure out, how to reconcile the runner you are in your 30s with the runner you are in your 40s. And it's just as I think we all know our relationship with running will change as we age, but you kind of never know when that point is going to happen for you, that it's not going to look the same as it did before. But there's always like a point where it does change and looks different. And it's to really kind of help people know, like, just because it looks different doesn't mean that it can't still be part of your life and still bring you a lot of joy.
And that's where the mindset stuff comes in, right? Because it's viewing running as something bigger than whatever the end result is or whatever the outcome is. To see it as running, it's almost, I mean, you need that outside person. I feel like that outside person to ask you, like, hey, so why do you run? And what is it about running? Especially because running is such a hard sport. And I say it all the time, running is a really hard sport, and it is always hard. What changes is our perspective of that effort, but it is always hard. Like, I wake up before my runs and I tell myself, this is going to be a great run. Like, I really go into those runs as positive as I can. And then I start running and I'm like, this is fucking hard. Like, that's just it. So like, I every day I'm like, yes, this is it. Like, I'm going to go and I'm going to feel really light and I'm going to feel like super happy. And then the run starts and I'm like, I do not feel light and I do not feel happy. I mean, I feel grateful because I'm running, and once I start having that discussion with myself, okay, but you're out here and you're doing it and like you're okay, and check in with your body and how does everything feel? Or even just the like, did you get enough sleep last night? How was your, like trying to break down the context of the run helps. But it is just, running is so hard. Running is so hard that our why for it is something that we have to explore, but it's also something that we have to allow to change over time if we're going to keep doing it. Because I've shared this before and I'll share it again, right? Where it's like when I started running, at first it was just, oh, I want to see what I can do. What can I do? Like, I didn't think I was a runner. I couldn't, like, I did a half marathon and I couldn't believe it was my body that did it. Did a marathon, same thing. I couldn't believe it was my body. Like, and it was just that. I'm like, even to this day, I'm like, I can't believe my body did that. Like, I know I do the training and obviously, like, I'm preparing to do the things, but still, come race day, I can't believe that I do that. And I went from, I just want to see what I can do, to, oh, I want to see how fast I can do it. And for me, that switch of how fast can I do it was not healthy. And it was not helpful for me. And I credit the conversation I had with you years and years ago, when we were talking about the Boston Marathon, and you had asked me, like, just why did I want to run it? And was it for me or was it for someone else? That was like your line of questioning. And I just remember crying on the phone with you and being like, oh my God, it's not for me. Like, this is not what I want. But if you had never asked that question, I would have never paused to like scratch at the surface of why I was doing the things I was doing and whether that why made sense for me. And that was for me such a pivotal moment in my running career of I don't have to go after this thing that it seems like everyone is going after, which the reality is not everyone's going after that. It's just certain times of the year. It seems like that's what everyone is doing, but that's hard. And I think for those that are listening that don't have a coach, what are some of the questions that you think they can ask themselves when it comes to understanding their why, or even just understanding that perhaps their why needs to change?
Yeah, I think that's such a good thing that everybody needs to do at different points in their running career, and I've done it so many times. I think when you feel this overwhelming pressure, especially when it comes to racing, um, I think that's where you have to ask yourself, who am I doing this for, right? So, am I running for me or am I running for somebody else? I think oftentimes we include other people in our running goals who really have no idea what it takes to do what you're doing, right? Our family, our friends, we tell them we're running a marathon or a half marathon, and um, including other people who don't know adds a lot of pressure, which is okay. I always like that quote, pressure creates diamonds, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's not a bad thing to have pressure, but if you kind of find yourself having a lot of anxiety about your goals or approaching speed workouts with anxiety about not hitting paces or things like that, I think it's so important to see, are you curious about what you can do, or are you afraid that you won't be able to do what you've set out to do? And that usually comes with time goals, but I think it can also come with just taking on new distances, or maybe kind of what you were talking about, external pressure, where you see like everybody's kind of going after this goal and maybe I should be doing that too. So I think it's important to just ask maybe why you feel a certain way about the goals that you have, and laying out the goals that you do have and really naming why they're important to you. Um, and I think a lot of times we think like there has to be some really deep meaning to our running goals, and there really doesn't. Like, it doesn't have to be, I need to get this so that I feel, accomplished. And then for me, this was one of the things, right? I really wanted to run a sub 3 hour marathon in order to have a baby because I wasn't sure I would ever come back. And that actually played out for me. But um, but that also put a lot of pressure on me, and it made me feel so overwhelmed when it came to racing. And it was like, well, why do I really care about this goal? Like, what's going to happen when I hit this goal, right? And I think that's the next question to ask yourself is, when I hit this goal, what's going to happen? Because I think that happens a lot of times when we set like a a barrier goal, right? I want to break 30 minutes in the 5K. I want to run a sub 1 hour 10K, or I want to break 4 hours in the marathon. And it kind of becomes this barrier. But what's going to happen when you do hit that goal? Like, are you going to be satisfied? Are you, as humans, we always want to go to the next thing, right? We're looking for another thing. So also, are you going to celebrate those things that you're doing? Um, because they're important to you for whatever reason, right? So I think, also just checking in with yourself about why you want to run in general, right? Like, if your reason for running is always to race or to get PRs, right, at some point that will shift, right? We all slow down. We will get injured at some point, which might just change the trajectory of your running, like it did for me. And kind of just coming down to why running is important to you um, is a really good thing to review. And again, it doesn't have to be that deep. Like for me, it's just like, especially now as a mom, like it's my me time and it's something that's only for me. And I want that for as long as possible. And maybe when, my kid grows up, it will change again, right? Like my why for running is that I'm just able to move my body in this way. And it makes me feel good when I finish a run. Because during the run, sometimes it doesn't always feel good. When
Yeah.
I finish it, I feel like really, really good. Um, and so, yeah, I think those are some things that you can think about if you are struggling with, you know, why am I doing this? And want some kind of clarity on your goals.
Yeah, I think the question of am I doing it for me or am I doing it for others is so important just because again, running is hard. And for most of us, running is something that we are choosing to do with our free time, right? Like running is something that we are adding to our lives. So it should make sense for us. We should be doing it for us because if not, in my opinion, there's a lot of other things that are maybe easier that you can do to do them. Because again, speaking from my own personal experience, I running felt like a chore. And I was that person that I would see the speed workouts and I would have so much anxiety about doing those workouts and just how am I going to be able to hit this and how am I like, and then I would do the workout and not be able to nail it. And, granted, part of it is just like, I live in Miami and heat and humidity are just something that just really challenging. And I am someone who does not thrive in the heat and the humidity. I actually start to melt. Like it is not fun. Um, and that's only gotten worse with age because hormone changes and all that fun stuff. But I remember that just seeing some of my workouts and being just dreading them, dreading the workouts. And I'm like, it's just not a good place to be. Like that thing that I'm doing that I initially started to do because I wanted to see what I could do, to have it be this thing that I was curious about and see it become something that I dreaded. That was for me like a very sobering thing where you don't think about it, right? Like I honestly, listen, I will admit for myself that when I started running, I never thought about the mental side of running. I just thought, let me go out and do it and see what happens. And it wasn't until again that one conversation with you that we really broke down like who is this running for and what does running mean to you, that I realized, oh, there is this whole mental component and there's this whole like peer pressure type of thing going on that I didn't realize was happening. Like it was just afterwards, it felt so obvious. And you and we've talked about it, right? We had a whole group coaching program that really emphasized the mental side of running. So we've talked about it, but it's not something that I feel gets talked about enough. Like I just don't think it is. Um, so thank you for that. Thank you for that. Everyone got a little mini coaching session there. From my very own coach, I'll just keep saying that. This is my run coach here. So yay me. Um, all right, Jessica, I want to take us to the theme of this episode, which is your favorite running memory. And I'm curious, I know you've got a long time of running to kind of look back upon. But is there one memory that stands out to you as your favorite or as something that was shifting, life altering for you?
Yes. I was thinking about this a lot because I have, the last 6 years have been all about really like making comebacks. And I've had like a lot of really good moments in there, even though I get injured a lot. I still have had really great moments in there. And then there's like my pre-injury running that was really very much looked like this kind of I was climbing a mountain and I was getting to the top. And there were a lot of good memories from there. So I wanted to share two, one from before and one from after. So the first one is actually I had run my first marathon at Big Sur and I had no idea what I was doing, right? I decided I wanted to run a marathon before I turned 30 and it was the month before my 30th birthday. So I signed up for it and at this point I kind of got addicted to racing. I had like entered the local running community and had been part of this run club and signed up for a ton of races. So I run Big Sur, and the next weekend I had signed up for a half marathon, which, if you know me or have been coached by me, you know I would never say that that's a good idea. But of course, I didn't know what to expect. I was also almost 12 years younger than I am now, so you can do some things. And I at the time during my training for that marathon, I had really low iron, and this was my first experience with anemia. And so I'd been supplementing with iron for a while, but my running had really been kind of a drag for a few months there. And the marathon experience was great. But then I get to this half marathon and I'm like, okay, like, let's just go out here and see what I can do. Had just gotten used to wearing a Garmin and tracking my paces and stuff. But I basically went into racing and ran like whatever felt good that day, right? So I get there and it's actually a local half marathon here. And the race starts, and somewhere around like mile 5, this was also when I used to listen to music very, very loud because I never wanted to hear myself breathing and zone out and just focus, right? And so around mile 5, this young kid, he must have been like 18 or 19, syncs up with me. And we're kind of doing this like back and forth in the race and really like helping each other out. And we never say a single thing to each other. But after the race, we crossed the finish line within like a minute of each other. I think I finished maybe a little bit in front of him. After the race, he comes up and he's like, "Thank you so much for running with me. Like, that helped me so much." And that was the first time I realized, like, this wasn't just an individual thing, even though that's what I really loved about it. Like, after being in team sports for so long, I really did like the solo aspect of running, and that you could really get out of it what you put into it, right? It wasn't based on how your teammates showed up that day or whether they were sleeping enough, right? It was really like on you. And that really let me know, like, wow, working like as a team out there and supporting each other was really, really helpful. And it took me a couple more years to not listen to music, but like that's my favorite thing now about racing is just like talking to other people out there and like cheering them on and working together when things are getting hard. Um, but yeah, he was like 18, and I still have this picture of him and me, and it will probably take me a long time to find it, but I just remember that was like the best half marathon experience I ever had because this kid just challenged me to run hard and not think about anything a week after I ran this marathon. And he ended up getting me like a 3.5 minute PR because he was like battling with me out there. And it
That's
was so much
amazing.
fun. Yeah.
It's amazing.
And I think that just really was like, wow, this can really be like a team thing, like where we work together. Um, so I really did love that experience. And that's one of my favorite races that I think about, you know, and I did that race again last year, and it was really cool to just do it again and kind of remember that experience.
That's
So
the
that was my
before
three.
memory.
Yeah. And when I was really like newer, I would say to racing and stuff. So the post injury, and this one kind of comes with like the up and down, right? Lots of ups and downs, and where I think after injury it's so hard to rebuild confidence in yourself. And one of the approaches that I took, so I had knee surgery to repair that or to remove that plica in my knee and then to repair my meniscus. So the recovery from that was the most grueling recovery I have ever experienced, worse than coming back postpartum. It was awful. And I have never felt so brand new to running and just so hard. And so I wanted to give myself lots of time. I didn't want to rush myself like I tried to rush myself postpartum. I wanted to make sure I had lots of time to come back. And I was very, very conservative because I lacked so much trust in myself. I didn't know what my body would do. It felt like I had a new leg. It was just very, very different. And so it took me about, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 months after I had surgery to actually do speed work. And I wanted to not jump ahead to like, oh, I want to sign up for a marathon now that I'm running. I wanted to just let me just do some 5Ks, which I think most marathoners don't like 5Ks. I never really liked 5Ks at all. And I thought I'm going to start there because it's something I don't usually like to do. And it's short enough where I can sign up for the race the week before because if I get injured, I don't want to have to do a DNS. I don't want to have to cancel a race. I'll
Hmm.
just sign up knowing I'm going to be there. And so I signed up for the first one and I start like way at the back because I'm not really sure what's going to happen. And it was great. I like progressively got faster, and I was able to finish it feeling strong. And then I ran another one and I got a little bit faster in that one. And so I was kind of on this like upward trajectory, and it was really nice. And then I finally started speed workouts. So this was all just running easy. And then I finally start the speed workouts, and my mindset for the whole thing was like, let's just be curious about what I can do. Like, let's not worry about what the paces are or anything like that. Let's just enjoy the fact that you finally get to run fast. Like months ago, I was like wishing for this, right? I'm wishing that I could push my body this way. And so I end up signing up for a race that's a local race that during the pandemic, at some point, it moved from the summer, where it was a really competitive race, because that was when a lot of competitive athletes weren't doing marathons or half marathons. They were racing 5Ks. So I signed up and I'm like, okay, this is going to be great. I'll be like, middle of the pack for this race, and I'll have some people to run with. It'll be awesome. And because it was later in the year, all those people were training for marathons or their longer distance races. So I show up and I'm like, I just want to improve from last time. I'm out there running, and around like mile 2, I realize there's a bike in front of me, and there's a guy next to me. So I figure like, oh, this must be for the guy. And I realize about another half mile, I'm like, I think that bike is for me. And so I'm running and I'm like, this is wild right now. And I'm like, I'm going to win this race. And I'm like, I don't know. I think at that point I was 10 months post surgery. And my husband was there, and I'm just flying this bike, and I am literally like, at the end of a 5K, you're just like, oh, just get me to the finish. Like you're just, you want to throw up, right? I am like, oh, I'm in the race of my life right now. And it was very far off my PR, but I broke this tape and I felt like I had won the Boston Marathon. That's what it felt like, because I was so surprised. And I think this is when I realized that my new approach to running, which was, who cares what time I run? Like, am I out here having fun? And am I like really getting more in tune with my body that I haven't felt like I know anything about anymore, right? And that felt like the most successful race that I had ever had. And not because I won, but because I surprised myself with this curiosity of like, we're just going to show up and we're going to try to run a smart race. And then it kind of just progressively from that race got better and better every single race for me. I didn't win a bunch of races, but I felt like I got just more understanding of not only my body through that whole training process, but my brain and what it needed to really have like a good race experience. And it wasn't to show up with a time goal or to feel like I had to do anything for the people I was going to share it with on Instagram or anything like that. But it was just like this pure like excitement and almost like a new runner. Like, what am I going to do today? Right? Like, how is this going to pan out for me? Because I don't really know what I'm doing. And of course, I have like the experience from years of running to kind of know what I'm doing. But I had never raced a 5K that well, even when I was at my fastest. And that's what felt really good, was that my new approach to running felt so much more controlled and stable for me, that I didn't feel like I was kind of on this like emotional roller coaster all the time with like, how's it going to go today, right? I just showed up and was like, I'm going to have so much fun today. And it always was fun. And it just so happened that I also ended up getting a little bit faster with every race from that point. Um, but that race was like one of the best post-injury race experiences I've had. And probably the best race experience I've had. And I've had some really good race experiences, but that one was one of the best.
It's so interesting because these are, how far apart are these two memories?
Um, 10 years.
10 years. And it's funny because you said something with both where it's like you're like with the marathon one, that half marathon, it's like you're new to the distance, right? Like you're new to the racing scene. And that newness is probably what allowed you to run that half marathon a week after Big Sur and to like rise up to the challenge of that person that was running with you. And here with this 5K memory, it's almost like the mirrored reflection of that, but not, right? Because now you have all this experience, you have also the hesitation of the injury, and yet they are very much so like partners in terms of the newness of being a runner. Not again, it's like it's so interesting to me because I'm like, oh, so you're kind of a new runner in both, but in one, you're a new runner and you have no clue. Like you have no clue about anything, right? You're just like, all right, let's go and see what we got. And the other one, you're a new runner, but with all this knowledge of what could go wrong, right? Like because of the injury, you're a new runner with a different level of appreciation for the running. So I think it's so interesting. And it's to me this reminder of being new is never a bad thing, right? Like being new, even if it's new at something you've been doing for all of your life, isn't a bad thing because as your story shared, there's always something different to unlock and something different that you can learn about yourself whenever you step back into the shoes of being a beginner. So, the question that I have now is when we take a look at these two memories, this half marathon experience and then this 5K experience, how would you say those two memories have helped shape who you are as a runner today?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, I think early on, that memory from early on, it really did highlight the importance of community and creating community, um, not just on race day, but like in your life, right? That supports what you are trying to achieve, and also that you can give yourself to, which is, I think, really what eventually led me to creating Team Sugar Runs, right? And a way that running has been a part of my life, even when I was injured, was having this community of athletes and coaches that could still let me be part of the running community in some way, right? Supporting other people in that journey. And so I think that really did highlight the importance of community. And I think that whole period of time for me was a lot about community, in person community, right? And now
Mhm.
it's more post pandemic, virtual community. Um, even though we are getting back to in person community too with our new Team Sugar Runs Run Club in person. Um, and so that really highlighted the importance of community for me. And I think making sure too that the running community, because there's different, I think, pieces of the running community, right? Just making sure that I'm always accessing the part that makes me feel good in that community. Um, and then I think the later memory really gave me more perspective on, I think really kind of, sorry, I'm adding a lot of filler words.
Oh, it's okay. I love filler words. Listen, anyone who's spoken to me, I will tell you those filler words are research shows they are a sign of intelligence because it's you trying to gather your thoughts and trying to probably create for us a very complex experience simmered down to just a few words. So it's okay. Give us those filler words. It's fine.
I think that second experience though showed me that having a beginner mindset, no matter where you're kind of at with whatever you're doing, right? With work, with sports, with any of that, is, I feel like, the best way to access a part of yourself that you may not realize is there. Because prior me would have gone out with a lot more confidence, but that confidence would have sputtered out at the end, which is how 5Ks always kind of ended up for me, right? I would start out fast because I was so confident that I was going to be fast, right? And I think feeling like a beginner has made me more hesitant, but also made me run smarter, um, where I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody. Um, and really has kind of like recentered me into like running is important to me for my own reasons. And it doesn't really matter what I do or what anybody else thinks about what I'm doing with running. Um, and truly, it's just nobody really does anyways. It's just I now internalize that more, right? Um, I know we often think like people will care what our finish time is, and I think people really just care that you're happy. At least the good people in our life, right? That
Mm-hmm.
you are happy and that you achieved what you wanted to achieve, right? Um, so yeah, I think I definitely like running more post injury because mentally I feel so much more hinged and less unhinged
Yeah.
than I
So
did.
it's funny because I'm hearing you and I'm thinking you said you used hesitant, and what I am hearing you say is not so much the hesitancy, but it's just control, right? Especially when we're thinking about a 5K. And this has just been my experience with 5Ks. I just feel like a bat out of hell. Like if
Yeah.
I'm racing a 5K, I'm just like, this is chaos from start to finish. And hopefully, the chaos that starts in mile one is a chaos that can be maintained for the rest of the race. So that's just what a 5K feels like to me. I'm like, it's always just chaotic. Like, that's just it. Like, when you're racing it, it just feels chaotic. But what I'm hearing from you, it's more of that, it's a controlled experience. So, not so much that like you're going into it with hesitancy. It feels like everything you said, it's more of that you're going into it knowing more. So, not so much that you're hesitant to push yourself, but it's more of like, all right, I know what it's taken to get me here. I know what it's taken, those PT sessions and all this stuff and all that work, like all those runs, all those run walks that if anyone's followed your journey, right, to see you go from like run walk or to see you on your elliptical or like all those adjustments that you've had to make. So for me, and maybe this is just me because I do know you outside of this and I have been following you as you navigate these different injuries. I don't see it so much as hesitancy. I see it more as like control, right? Of you're controlling the experience and you are taking control over the effort as well. So maybe that is hesitancy, but I think I like control better because at least control sounds kind of more empowering. Like I am in control versus I am hesitant. Like that's just me. But again, my experience with 5Ks are just that they feel so chaotic from start to finish. Whereas, like, the longer distances, you start conservatively and then it can get a little chaotic at the end. But it's a 5K is just always, there is no warming up into it, right? Like, you're usually starting off pretty hot. So I think that the beginner mindset is something that we could all use and we could all tap into, especially if we're feeling like maybe we're in a plateau with running, or we're feeling like we're not progressing, or we're feeling like, what else is there to it, right? Of instead of asking what else is there, it's that question of, well, what else can I do, right? Like what else, how can I approach this differently in order to get a different outcome? Because if I'm seeing the same outcome over and over again, then what needs to be done differently so that there is a different outcome? And being a beginner is great.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it's not just about what else can I do, but what can I stop doing so much of
Mm.
that will help me, especially if you're in a plateau. I mean, I used to run 6, 7 days a week. I'll probably never be able to do that again. I now strength train so much more than I used to. Um, and it's kind of like figuring out what different because a lot of us get very stuck in like, my training has to look like this, my racing has to look like this, but it can be different and that can be good for you, mentally and physically. And I think that's probably another aspect of it too. It's that, because you're right, like I don't have necessarily that beginner mindset because I do know what it's like to race a 5K. I do, to really race it not smartly, which is what most of us do, right? We go out really hot and then we die at the end. I've done the same thing in 10Ks, right? And in the marathon. So I think that experience, and also just kind of having more patience because I've been injured for so long, I think has translated into the racing aspect of it too. Um, and that's something that I think when you are injured so often, or when you've been injured, the patience is the hardest part. And I think that's the hardest part for a lot of people with running in general. We all want really like quick changes. And when you're a beginner, you do see quick changes. So sometimes when you're coming back to running, like I have, you start with a run walk and it feels very, very slow. And then all of a sudden you have all this progress, right? And same thing with beginners, right? It feels really, really hard. And then all of a sudden you're making really big gains. You're PRing almost every race. And then you get to the point where you're kind of a little bit stuck, right? And you've maybe, that's where you maybe need to make some changes. But yeah, like I still have that experience from running for so long, but I also have the patience part of it that a lot of us don't with running, because it is not an immediate gratification sport. It takes a lot of patience and time and consistency. And when you are injured and you've gone from running 6 or 7 days a week, 60 miles a week, you're doing marathons, to now doing a run walk, mentally that feels like the hardest part. But that's kind of what I want people to know, is that that patience pays off just like it did for you when you first started running. It will pay off here too. Um, it just is going to take a lot of time.
Yeah. Okay. I have a series of questions for you. They're kind of rapid fire-ish, but might not be. So the first question is, if you could go back in time to speak to a younger version of your runner self, what would you say?
I would tell myself to fuel more. I ran during the time where, I mean, that half marathon that I ran with that kid, I took no fuel. And I look back and I think, man, if I had been more fueled during those runs and races, running would have felt good all the time. And so I would have told myself to fuel more.
Yeah, that's a common one. Okay. Flipping it, what hopes do you have for your future runner self?
I really do hope that I can one day run a marathon again. I think that is, I have signed up for, I think, 4 or 5 marathons since I had my son, and I haven't been able to run one. So I'm hoping that I can one day run a marathon that is the distance that I have loved so much. And I just hope to experience that again one day.
Yeah. How do you celebrate yourself as a runner?
By giving myself grace. um, yeah, I think it's not necessarily a celebration, but I really just don't get down on myself anymore. I would say prior to my knee surgery, so even postpartum, I would get very down on myself about not hitting a pace or running as many miles or doing X, Y, or Z. And now it's just like, we got in 30 minutes today and I'm so proud of myself. It's the simple things that I give myself grace, but I also like celebrate every run that I get is a celebration for me.
Well, yeah, because now you know that, and this is something I'm coming to realize just as I age, that we're not guaranteed the runs. Like
Yeah.
we really aren't guaranteed it. Like there's so much. Like, before I used to think about it in terms of races, right? I would tell my athletes, okay, so like this is what's possible if everything goes well on race day, right? Like you're fueling, you're the weather, this, that. Now I'm like, Oh, that actually kind of just applies to all our runs in general of like, if today everything is going great, then it's gonna be a great run because we're just not guaranteed anything, I feel. And again, I don't know if that's more like has to do with age and just coming to terms with my own mortality or just living in a body that is aging. And even though mentally I feel very young, like I it was like last week I was I think it was on Friday where I was with my youngest daughter and she's like, Mommy, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I'm just really feeling my age today. Like that's just it. I'm like, my back was hurting, my legs were hurting. I'm like sitting in the car for too long, everything was hurting. I'm like, I'm just feeling my age. Like that's just it. And that's something that when I was in my 20s, I wouldn't be like, oh my God, my body hurts everywhere. Now it's just like everything hurts all the time. Like, so I love that because we're just each run is a gift. And each time we're able to lace up and go outside and do a run, even if it's 10 minutes, that's still like something,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. This question is the easiest question, and it's just where do we find you and how do we better connect with you?
Yes, so on Instagram, I am at Sugar Runs, SUGARRUNS, and you can follow Team Sugar Runs at Team Sugar Runs. And my website is sugarruns.com. And if you're looking for a coach, we have a fun quiz on there that you can take to get matched with one of our female coaches. And yeah, if you're injured or if you're struggling with injury or returning to running, you can always message me on Instagram. I have great conversations there with injured runners and love talking to people um, and encouraging people in there. So,
Yeah. Okay. Final question is what are your final words for us?
my final words, just to enjoy running. Running is such a gift. I think having lost it so many times, just kind of knowing, like you said, that not every run is guaranteed, not every race. And I think to really just value every run that you get and to not put so much pressure on yourself.
Yeah. Jessica, thank you so much for
Thank you.
joining us, for being
It's such a good time
here.
talking to you. Thank you.
I just, this was always, I mean, anytime I get to talk to you, we have so many conversations that I'm like, I wish we could record this and just have everyone listen to it because you'll realize that we're runners just like everyone else. And just like you all are trying to figure it out, so are we. And it's, it's hard. Sometimes it's hard and sometimes it's easy. So yeah, Jessica, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Everyone, we'll see you next time. Bye.